Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mujeres Create podcast. This is part 5 of the Behind the Success mini series. And I'm calling this episode Una Latina in Tech, Bleeding Hulu Green. I'm so excited to talk about this experience. I left Hulu in 2016, almost 10 years ago. So I got to Hulu in December of 2011. The company had launched March of 2008. And when I got there, it was still very much a startup. Obviously, 2 years into the company had grown significantly. The the Hulu name had become more known and popular. They had started to aggregate a lot of incredible content that people were now able to access through their computers, through their living room, I think through mobile as well. So when I got there, the Hulu brand was already built. I was able to leverage, that Hulu presence that had already been built. I got there to build the Hulu Latino business. At the time, they had this brilliant idea of having all the telenovela content available on Hulu. And they were starting to secure content partnerships with Univision, with Galavision, I think with Azteca, with a few Spanish language TV networks. So when I got there, I think we had about 6 or 7 content partners. And we had started to secure some advertising partnerships. We're talking about media agencies and advertising partners that had never ran on Hulu from a multicultural advertising perspective. So, getting there to build the presentation materials that we had to bring to market, create a narrative, a story for advertisers, why they should believe in Hulu, why they should invest in Hulu Latino, why they should run their ads on this platform that was still, building a name for itself. I came into this amazing company. The first day I walked in, it was literal a construction zone in the office. They were still building some of the cubicles. They were still putting up some walls. So I remember walking in and like seeing all of this construction material on the floor. And I just got this feeling of, oh my God, what have I done? I left a beautiful office in Chicago. I had like a huge office with a couch with 2 windows. And I was walking into this unknown place. I was greeted by the office manager and everybody on the floor. And it was just like a sense of relief because everybody was so friendly and approachable and welcoming that I said to myself, okay, maybe it's not so bad. I had an incredible manager. His name is John Villade, who hired me. He's the person that found me on LinkedIn. And, this manager, I have to say, I think he was the best manager I've ever had. He was very empowering. He was very uplifting, motivating, encouraging. He empowered me to really own it. One of the first few things he said to me was, this is now yours. You build it with your voice. You build it with your experience, with your knowledge, but this is yours. I'm here to help. I'm here to support, but I want you to know that this business is yours. And I don't think he realized that he was talking to someone that was very afraid. Someone that I think was still trying to prove herself and was trying to realize that this huge responsibility was put on someone that was navigating a lot of like limiting beliefs at the time. I was coming from television, traditional media to big tech, and I just couldn't believe it. But here we are with this manager who believes in me so much. It just gave me a sense of I can't disappoint him. I can't let him down. I have to do this well. And I think that boost of confidence that he instilled in me allowed me to say, you know what, I'm going to go find those clients. I'm going to create an account list. I'm going to create a beautiful presentation. That boost of confidence was really life changing for me. And, I was able to get in front of so many advertising agencies that I had never worked with. I was flying to California, flying to Chicago and Miami. I would say that I was on a plane every single week. I was working so much and traveling so much. But very quickly, I realized the amount of exposure this role was giving me, not only in the region that I was working at, which was New York, but in other places that I had never worked at. I was traveling to every multicultural conference. I was meeting, I want to say, every single multicultural media agency, every single account that had multicultural business opportunity. It was truly a role that just helped me grow so significantly. And I really do credit those years at Hulu for positioning me in the marketplace in the way that it did. And obviously that Hulu role opened the door for so much more for me in my career. And you know, doing the work itself was so much fun. I got to work in a company that was very open-minded, very free. I would describe the Hulu environment as a very like open, free, welcoming, happy, relaxed environment. Our New York office was very small and then it grew to a bigger office. But those early days, we had all these games in the office. We always had events for ourselves, like a bar cart, a like Halloween event. It's so many things that we were just doing to create a fun environment in the office. And, don't let the fun fool you. We were working very hard. Every single person in the sales team was constantly traveling to see clients, constantly out in meetings, kept constantly out, having lunches and dinners at events, at conferences. It was a work environment that really encouraged, you know, us being out there selling the Hulu brand. And because the Hulu brand was a brand that was so fun, it was all this beautiful content. And I loved all the reels that were put together. We had the best marketing team. Clients saw a very fun brand on screen. So the people selling that brand, we also carried that with us. We wanted to show up in high spirits, positive personality, happy, excited. We're always doing fun stuff with clients. But we were working very hard. We were always meeting revenue targets, taking it very serious because we felt that we were working for a team. And in my case, I had the Latino business, so I had to work across every single account executive and try to help them get Latino business from their account list. So I got very close with everybody. We were really a family that I never thought I could create, especially after my time at NBC, spending 8 years there with a beautiful family that I built there too. This was a different family, and it was definitely a family dynamic, a friendly dynamic that I will never forget. Hulu, I have to say, was probably the least diverse workplace that I've ever worked at. There was not a lot of diversity. In New York, I was one of three Latinas in the office. We're talking about an office of like maybe 30, 40 people. Then obviously the office space grew and we were able to bring in a little bit more diversity. But when I walked in, I was one of three Latinas. There was only one Black person in the team. When you went to the West Coast, that's where our tech operations were at, our marketing operations, sales. It was a bigger team. So there was a little bit more diversity there. But, although there was that lack of diversity, it's been one of the most inclusive workplace cultures that I've ever been part of. And when I mean inclusive is a workplace culture that really sees you, that celebrates you, that includes you. And obviously, not everything was perfect. I don't want to also paint the picture of, Hulu was perfect. I never had any challenges. Of course, I had challenges. I think this challenge of always being one of the few Latinas. In my case, I was running the sales operations for the Latino business. So I was that constant presence, and I was constantly the only Latina in the room, not only internally, but when I went to see clients, I was often the only Latina. And so obviously that drains you sometimes, and you kind of want to see more of those faces. You kind of want to see more people that you can kind of see yourself in and relate to in a different way from a cultural perspective. So, that stuff definitely was not easy for me to manage at times. And the tech space itself requires a different level of experience and knowledge and skills. We're talking about data, we're talking about video streams, we're talking about view and behavior, click through rates, open rates, uh, video completion rates. Like, it was a different language that I was speaking, and kind of like getting my mind to switch from television, traditional television, ratings, prime time, early fringe, early morning, talent, original shows. It was just like very different. And I had to get acclimated to that. And sometimes combating the imposter syndrome was really hard for me, again, because I was often the only in the room. But, those challenges were, I guess, not as uh, hard for me to handle because there were so many positives. And again, I had a super supportive manager who encouraged me to really own it and to make it mine, and to go out and just like sell and do well and be everywhere I wanted to be. He encouraged me to do that. So, I kind of weigh that in a balance of, there were some like difficulty, but there were so many positives at the same time. And so, thinking about that experience, and I really do believe that it's been the best work experience of my entire career. Those almost 5 years that I spent at Hulu, um, are are years that I really cherish, because every time I see people at conferences, they used to know me as the Hulu girl, as the Hulu rep. And, they're like, oh my God, you were so cool in that role. You were so happy in that role. That role was so you. That role was so in line with your personality. And I love hearing that because it's true. That's how I felt. I felt like I found something that was so in line with who I was. Now, I was at Hulu for almost 5 years, so 2011 to 2016. And, things were not always things didn't stay the same for very long. As Hulu grew and as more media companies paid attention to that growth and felt a little bit threatened by that growth, the leadership team at Hulu started to change. So when I walked in there, the CEO of Hulu, the CMO, the COO, they were all like very like free, playful, hardworking. Definitely there was a lot of structure, but everybody felt so approachable. And then a few years into me being at Hulu, we ended up getting leaders from NBC that came in to run the show, that came in to run sales and, to be managers in the office. And that fun culture, it didn't completely stop, but it changed significantly. We were all much more mindful of our actions and what we were doing. And um, we felt like we needed to give more of the perception that we were not having so much fun, but we were working more. And, we ended up losing a lot of those leaders that I really looked up to and loved working with. And, the leaders that created the fun environment for us and that nurture that fun environment, we ended up losing a lot of those leaders, unfortunately, in exchange for leaders that wanted to bring more structure, bring more order, kind of like bring more of that NBC culture, which, the culture at NBC is also great and fun, but is much more corporate, much more serious, much more about the numbers and about performance. And And we lost a lot of that. And we ended up losing a lot of teammates that went to different companies. They just went everywhere. Some of them went to Google. I was one of them. Um, so it's kind of like the Hulu core group, like just went. They went to Vivo. They went to Snapchat. They went to Netflix. They went to Google. They went everywhere. But I think the sentiment that we all built in those years still remains. And we're all so close, and we always have that Hulu experience to look up to. Any company that can embrace fun in that way is really just setting themselves up for success. And I wanted to get into the lessons, because this is not just about fun, it's about the lessons. I really want anyone, especially any Latina, any Black woman who wants to get into tech and who is looking into these type of companies, to really know that there is space for you there. The numbers say a different story, but these are roles and jobs and opportunities that are available to you. I think anytime that we're able to look at our careers and figure out how we can reframe things, how we can think differently, think bigger, and go after it, and not let any like feelings of I'm not good enough to be there. Maybe I'm not qualified. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I don't have the connections. Just fight those feelings and just go after it. So the first one is a new company can be a chance to reinvent yourself. So going from NBC, spending 8 years there, think when you're grooming talent, sometimes you miss their growth because you still think they're interns, they're entry level. And so when I got to Hulu, it was really a chance for me to reinvent myself. It was a chance, nobody knew me. I knew no one at Hulu. It was starting from scratch. So it was really a chance to reinvent myself, to dress differently, to show up differently, to act differently, to be more confident. If I was acting confident, nobody knew that I wasn't confident at NBC. They just saw this confident person and they're like, oh, she's a confident woman. If I really worked hard at presenting well and doing a good job, that's what people saw. They don't know that I was not that a few months ago. They just knew that I was this person that showed up there confident and ready. And so it really gave me a chance to reinvent myself. So if you are in a job, in a role that you've been at for a very long time, and you don't know what kind of changes you need, you keep getting passed up for promotions, you keep getting kind of like forgotten in the pipeline, it's time to get out. Even if you go to a smaller company, even if you go to a company that maybe is not as recognized, if you go to a startup, maybe it's time to reinvent yourself. And a new role, a new company might be the opportunity to do that. The second lesson is master the art of seeing the big picture versus staying in the weeds. This is a big one. When I worked at Telemundo and NBC, our sales presentations were all about we're number one, we're number one, we're number one. We are beating these networks in all of these day parts. It was always like the focus on them. By the way, every media company says the same thing. If you work at Univision, they're number one. If you work at Telemundo, they're number one. If you work at any company, they're always number one. But when I went to Hulu, one of the things that I loved and I learned from so much is the fact that they never talked about being number one. They kind of were focused on the big picture of digital, aggregating all the content that people love in one place, bringing viewers from all these different places that now could watch their favorite shows on Hulu. So they didn't have to say they were number one. It was kind of like assumed. Wow, if everybody's like not able to find their shows digitally on NBC, on CBS, on Univision, but they can find it on Hulu, all these audiences are coming to you. And it wasn't just about the Hulu narrative. It's more about like the big picture of me. It was no longer about Yesenia in this media company, this tech company. This Yesenia, what is the big picture of you? This is now something you're doing, but what is the bigger picture? What are you not seeing? How are you maybe a little focused on the little weeds, and how can you kind of like zoom zoom out and just see the bigger picture, because there's definitely more. And so I encourage you to kind of see the bigger picture of your career, of your role, of your expertise, of where you are, and just say, what is the big picture that maybe I'm not seeing? Lesson number 3, and this one I'm very passionate about because I have encountered a lot of managers in my career. I've been a manager too. It's really good to learn from non-traditional managers. So what I mean by non-traditional managers is traditional managers, I think, are following a playbook that may be a little bit outdated. You know, I think traditional management is a lot about controlling their employees. What time are you showing up to the office? Did you complete that on time? Are you on time to the meeting? What are you wearing? How are you presenting yourself? You can't say that in front of people. It's kind of like a little bit controlling and a little bit just focused on their employees following the rules. That's what I think traditional management is. If I am wrong, you can tell me otherwise. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a traditional manager because um, that's how they were taught, right? That's how they learned. And if that's how you learned, it's okay to lead that way. But I think taking time to just see how things have evolved, how management has changed, how employees have different needs, how employees just want to feel more human in the workplace. Taking time to learn those things is really important. And so I encourage any manager that maybe is following that traditional playbook to take a step back and just figure out what are some of the things they need to evolve in their model. And so the lesson here is learning from non-traditional managers is very important. Um, Non-traditional managers, what I found at Hulu, it's managers that are a lot more human, number one. You see them making mistakes, and that's okay. They own up to the mistakes. You see them being open in terms of the office policy. They don't scrutinize you if you're late into the office. Obviously, you're not going to disrespect them and just be late every single day, but they don't shame you for that. They allow you to be yourself. You know, in a meeting, when you raise your hand, you don't have to be perfect. They allow you room to be who you are, to say things how you need to say them, right? Obviously, always keeping that respect. They give you freedom to own your business. They give you freedom to be creative, to do things differently, to do things how it works for you versus how it works for them. Um, you know, a non-traditional manager will give you space to grow in your career. They're okay with you leaving the team. They're okay with you going for other roles. They're okay with you evolving. They don't want to control you and keep you in that role. And I think learning from those managers, even if you don't have a manager that is non traditional, if you see a manager on other teams that you admire, how they do things, how they go about their business, go talk to them. Just learn from them and adopt those habits that really resonate with you, because the workplace needs more of this. You know, coming from the pandemic, I think a lot of people realized how enclosed we've been in our jobs, in our roles, in our businesses, and people just want to feel human, have space to do the things that they need to do. So learn from those non-traditional managers. Lesson number 4, a vibrant workplace culture is a game changer. And this is more for managers that are in charge of creating the culture. Anywhere that you can infuse color, music, games, activities, team bonding, make it happen. We spend so much time in the office working, and, we're kind of like seeing our lives pass by while we're working in the office all the time. And we need to make that money, we need to work. But why not have fun with it? One of the things I loved about tech is that fun piece. It's like how they embrace fun. It was very different to walk into that every day. And it wasn't like a party every day. Like, it wasn't fun every day, but bring colorful bagels one day, do a bar cart, do a sound bath, do any fun activity that will bring employees to bond and connect with each other. It really is a game changer. Lesson number 5, last but not least, it's okay to fail. The courage to leap is the big win. So I didn't fail, obviously. I took the big leap, leaving NBC to go to Hulu. There were moments that I felt like I was failing in my role. But, I think when you're taking a big leap, the biggest thing that we worry about is failure. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if I don't do well? And those are normal things to feel. But if you fail, it's okay. Guess what? There's other jobs, there's other opportunities. It's not the end of the world, it's not the end of your career. And the best part of all is that we get to learn, and we get to learn from those lessons. And we carry that everywhere else we go. So don't be afraid to fail. Just having that courage is really the big win. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're sticking around for the rest of the series. There's a lot more coming up. Let me know what you think, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and don't forget to share the wisdom with other mujeres.